Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Off the Cuff with Cliff. I'm Cliff Moore. I'm your host for today. I'm a business owner. I've been in business my whole life, so I've been in business for the last 10 years. And this is Off the Cuff, where we're just going to talk about things. It's not scripted. We're going to make mistakes, errors, boo-boos, but more importantly, I made a boo-boo. I didn't introduce my co-host and a friend here, Sheba. Sheba is here, and we're going to talk about business. Sheba is a business owner. Like I said, I've been in business my entire life, so for 10 years. And there's some things that had changed. And Sheba had asked me, what's different about today? So Go ahead, Sheba. What would you be doing today, and why are we here?
Well, I would be on the beach, but I'm stuck here with you, so we may as well talk. I'm a green entrepreneur.
Right.
Very new at this, still in the early stages, 5 years now in business. And you've been everywhere for business. You've been at the top, you've been at the bottom, the peaks, the valleys, everything in between.
Yeah.
I'm working my way up the hill, right?
And you would ask me what was different today when I started than when you started.
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yes.
Go ahead, ask that question.
So what is different today, Cliff? Now it's been, 19 years for you?
10 years.
10 years. Okay. 10 years. So what is different today from 10 years ago, from a decade ago?
So, again, it's off the cuff, but I've been in business for over 40 years. I've owned multiple businesses, worked for companies, and back when I started, it was a lot different. It was different because people in those days found a job and they stayed with that job for their entire life and they would retire. That was their goal.
Right.
And they stayed in jobs whether they liked it or not because they had responsibilities. So things were a lot easier. If you owned a business, you hired somebody and they were good to go and they were with you for a while. And they got raises at regular times and things like that. But pretty much people were loyal to the business. Over time, things have changed. Now, people aren't loyal to the business. People are loyal to the people. And I'm going to say the biggest change that happened was the way you deal with people.
Okay.
When I started, if you didn't do it, it was my way or the highway. If you didn't like it, this is how you're going to do it. You didn't have to be polite. In fact, you weren't polite. These were the rules. This is what you get paid. This is what you're expected to do, and that's it.
Right.
And then everything changed, and it changed for the good. And I'm not talking about unions or taking advantage of people, things like that. I'm talking about good business owners that still took good care of their people.
Right.
But the employees were different than they are today. So the interview process was different. Everything was different. And today, everyone is worried about how they're going to offend somebody. So they're doing business worried about how they're going to offend somebody. If I do something with this person, so I owned a restaurant. And in the restaurant, it was an IHOP restaurant in Keyport. I had customers who were mad at me because a certain politician ate in my restaurant and they shared it on Facebook and I was shaking their hand. And people came there and says, well, because you support him, I'm not coming to your restaurant. I mean, come on, get a life, get real. So what I learned to do and politics is politics. And that affects business, believe it or not. That affects it. And I always warn people, stay out of the politics part. So what I do is I said to the Republicans, you can use my restaurant. I said to the Democrats, you can use my restaurant. And I let both of them use my restaurant. And that's sort of how I had to combat that. But again, business isn't really about politics. But unfortunately, even in today, with the division of this nation, politics is getting more and more involved. And I think that's a bad thing.
Politics and social issues, right?
Social,
how do you stand on social
how do you
issues
stand?
As well?
And it's really, companies that are around forever aren't there anymore. And so it's different in that sense.
Yeah, I think neutrality is important. There are things that you might want to say. Just focus on your business.
Focus on your business.
People don't need to know what your opinion is politically or socially on something. They're hiring you and they want to make sure you're going to do a good job and they can trust you. But nobody needs to know that. It's just going to muddle the waters.
I mean, as an entrepreneur, business owner, you want to make sure you have good employees. And it's the safety of your employees. It's the respect that you give your employees. It's that same respect then gets transferred to the customers if you don't handle your customers right. And that was back then, and it's the same today.
It's true.
But back then, everything was very, very regimented, right? You didn't have as much competition. You had, hey, if I wanted this, I went to this restaurant. If I wanted this, I went to... But then the world opened up, right? Now people are selling everything. I can sell pizza, cheesesteak, and I can sell a hamburger all in the same place, where before it was a lot more specialized. And that's if you're in a restaurant business.
Right. You had only a limited number of choices, right?
You had a limited number
now
of choices.
The choices are endless.
Endless.
So you better make sure that your employees are happy, that your employees are making your customers happy, because they can move on and pick
Anywhere they want to go.
anywhere they want to go.
Anywhere they want to go. Back then, again, it's social issues. I mean, you can do the drug testing, you can do all that stuff. Now it's like you're afraid to what you tell people and not tell people.
Yeah.
There were HIPAA laws before where you couldn't tell somebody something. If you needed a day off and I couldn't give you the day off, you had to find a replacement. Now that's against the law to tell them to find a replacement. And right
You can't
now,
ask them why questions
you
either.
can't
You have
ask
to be
them
so
why.
careful what you ask.
I'm not coming in today, Sheba, because it's nice out and I'm putting the boat in the water. Well, back then I tell you that's fine. Then you got to get somebody to replace you. Now you don't even have to tell me why you're taking off, and you don't have to call me to tell me you're taking off. So the world in that sense has changed.
Yeah.
And again,
Some for the better. When I do check-ins with my employees, I always say, please know, I need constructive feedback as well.
Right.
I need to know what you like about working here, but also what don't you like? What can I change? Because again, the happier my employees are,
True.
the better job they're going to do, and the better it's going to reflect in our work. But I mean, thinking back 20 years ago, no boss ever said,
no.
"Can you tell me what I'm doing wrong?" Can
No.
you imagine?
They didn't want to know.
They didn't want
Right?
to know.
They didn't want to know.
That would be
It
like
was-
our parents asking us, how could I be a better parent? And
Correct.
I think some of us do ask
Right.
our kids, like, I'm sorry, or we apologize to them for yelling or getting out of line.
And
It's
back
a different
and
world.
back then, the employee's always worried about retaliation because I control the schedule.
Right.
The business owner controls the schedule. So if I came to you and I complained to you about this, or this, and I didn't like it, I'd tell you to shut up, clock up, and go home, and I'd do something on your schedule. Now, not everybody did that, and I did at one point do that. I was probably the worst boss anybody could ever have. And the reason for that is, again, this is off the cuff, so I'm going to go out a little bit there. I was bullied my entire childhood. I am the oldest of 5 children born in 6 years. I was bullied. We were a poor family. And when I got a job and I was in charge and I had that power, bingo, I was like, no one's going to step on me. And I
Right.
became the bully that I regretted when people did it to me. It took me a long time to change that. And, thinking back on it now, I could have probably made a lot more money because I was constantly turning over staff. And to your point, I never looked at it that way, but, especially when I owned restaurants, if I pissed the server off and the server's walking around with a chip on the shoulder, that energy is just being portrayed to that
Transferred.
customer as well. It's just transferring, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to change your whole experience at your restaurant.
It changes everything. So, I did learn. I learned later on in life, and obviously I changed that. I coach differently, and I coach, how people should be doing things and stuff like that. But like, you're a good example. I mean, when you hire people, what's the process you go through when you hire people?
I get to know them as a person.
Right.
You need to really know who this person is, because not everyone is going to fit in every facet of your business, right? Some person might even, apply for one part of your business and you might think, oh, they'll be a good fit here, but actually they're happier here and they do better here. And that's what you want to do. You want to set your employees up for success.
Right.
Right? Because the more successful they are, the more successful you are.
Right.
And I think being approachable and open to feedback as their leader is really important. I think every small business owner should read up, take classes, talk to other business owners on how to be an effective leader and how to be a leader that first and foremost always respects their employees. Right. Because if you don't have mutual respect, then it's not going to work. You can't build something on a weak foundation.
No.
And all businesses are in the business of people. At the end of the day, that's what we're doing, right? We're serving people. So if the boss is not treating their team correctly, it's a weak foundation.
You nailed it. I mean, I don't care what business you're in the people business. And once I realized that I was in the people business, I had to learn how to handle people differently, be more patient with people than I was in the past. Everyone has a label now. Everyone gets defensive over the first thing you say. And we all go through that. But back then, you used the word leadership. Back then, we weren't leaders. We were bosses. Hey,
right.
This was the rule. This is what you do. Where a leader tries to find out a better solution, tries to solve problems. Okay, we were handed a manual that said this is how you solve that problem.
Right.
And if you were an employee, you were expected to follow this, and this was the letter of the law, and that's how things were done. And then to your point, I mean, I think the way you handle your employees, the fact that you sit down and ask them, we would never ask an employee what they liked and what they didn't like. Later on in my career, I started a process called Stop, Go, Continue, where I would sit down, and it wasn't a formal interview. And I learned this from a business coach. This is not something that I created. He identified me. I owned 7 businesses at that time. I was my worst enemy in my businesses, and I was the one that was creating the turnover, which was costing me money. And once he pointed that out, and once you realize you're doing something wrong, that's half the solution, he used to say.
Right.
And then Stop, Go, Continue. We did every quarter. We would sit down with every employee, and we'd have a red, yellow, and green card. What is it you like? That's green.
Right.
What would you like me to do? That's the yellow. I may or not do it. But more importantly, what would you like me to stop doing? That didn't mean they told me to stop doing something. I was going to stop it.
Correct.
But it was just the fact that they were getting their feelings out and being heard.
Mm-hmm.
They became different employees. And once I realized that when I gave them the actual expectation and they understood the expectation and they accepted the expectation, most of my employees changed. And they changed because I guess I approached them differently. So what you said is 100%.
Yeah, I mean, you have to kind of even the playing field sometimes. And when, the part of the stop is really important, because even if it's something that you can't change, maybe they didn't understand why you can't change it. And maybe you give them the respect of explaining, like, I understand that this part of the business is frustrating, but right now I'm dealing with this, and this, and you disclose as much as you feel comfortable, right? But then maybe it'll change their mindset and they'll go, oh, I didn't realize that that's what you have to do, nor should they, right? But if you explain it to them and you give them that respect, then it'll change their perspective on it.
Right.
I think what I've learned, and I'll continue to make mistakes, but I've learned that in order to be an effective team leader, my job at the end of the day with my team is to make their job easier.
Correct.
And to make them as successful as they can be with what they're doing.
Right.
And if I'm not giving them the tools, both physically and logistically, to do that, then I'm not a good leader.
Right.
And it benefits everyone. But you're only in my business, you're only as strong as your team.
Right. You're only as strong as your weakest person, they say, right?
Right.
You're only as strong as your weakest person.
It's true.
And, I had learned, and again, it took many, many years, but I had learned that my best employees were the ones that I would associate with, and I'd find out what their obstacles were, what obstacles you have. So my job became more of getting rid of obstacles that prevented my employees from doing a better job for themselves. And once they felt good about it, they became your ambassador.
Yes.
They're telling their friends about your business. So rather than saying, oh, I wouldn't eat there, or I wouldn't go there, now they want them to come there. And then, that helps grow your business as well.
It does. And now they're saying, no, things have changed. You got to give it another try.
Right.
But also what you just said is you've already established an open line of communication, right? And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's about these interactions, whether it be with your employees, with your customers. You have to keep open lines of communication. You have to have people comfortable enough to come to you and sometimes say things that maybe aren't so favorable and just process it.
Right.
You don't have to always react and give an answer right then and there. Just take it in, process it, and think about it, and then get back to them. It's okay to say to someone, I hear what you're saying to me. Let me get back to you on this.
So anyway, you just gave me an idea for one of our upcoming episodes.
Okay.
And you're talking about communication and listening and the difference between listening and hearing. I was always of the mindset, and I think most people are, as people were talking to me, instead of actually hearing what they're saying, I'm already thinking about what my response is going to be, and I never really got the full message. So we're going to talk about that in great detail, because I went through some painful things in my life because of the way I did that. But that's going to be a future episode.
Okay, sounds good to me.
Are you in for that?
I'm all in.
All right. Well, thanks for coming. We hope you like this episode. We hope you tune in for more. Again, this is Off the Cuff. We're going to make mistakes, and we just don't care.
No, we don't.
All right,
Tune in
Sheba.
for more.
Tune in for more. Thanks, Sheba.